Hello, I'm Adam, and I'm here today to talk to you about racial ideology and racial politics. I've made two other videos on this topic, and I would recommend that you check those out as well. But today I want to be very specific and talk about Barack Obama's racial and racist ideology. A lot of people are afraid to talk about this. Or they're intimidated by the news media because to bring this up would be to be denounced, ironically, as a racist yourself. If you speak out against the racist agenda and racial proportionment schemes and racial ideology about the President of the United States, Barack Obama is seen as a sacred cow on this matter, and the press protects him. But it's important for people to understand this. It's not a smear or character assassination. It's his political ideology, and we have to understand it because it affects the way this nation is governed. It affects our laws, it affects our Constitution, it affects our society in very deep ways. So we have to understand it and make a decision about whether this is something we want for our country or whether it's something we need to reject very explicitly. The myth, of course, the myth and lie about Obama is that he's a post-racial politician and someone who is a uniter. This has never been true. And anyone who knows anything about Barack Obama would laugh at this idea, but it was what was sold to the American people by the left-wing press back in 2008. And of course, Republicans and conservatives were intimidating against talking about this. Ironically, in 2008, John McCain was the post-racial candidate. He was the candidate in favor of individual identity and individual liberty. And Barack Obama is the left-wing racial throwback to the darker times of racial categorization, racial laws, racial proportionment, things like that. And again, this ideology of Obama, don't forget, Barack Obama is half white. His identification is black. He's not factually black, he's mixed race, but his identification with blackness is political. When you see Obama on TV and he's on St. Patrick's Day, he's drinking a green beer, that is not ironic, it's not in jest. He is the son of Ireland, he is half white, and so he's a person of mixed race who was raised by a white mother and loving white grandparents who he's gone to private schools. He's had an elite education where he's been the beneficiary of privileges because of his race, because of he's able to claim black on forms and be the beneficiary of affirmative action. And he grew up in a very cosmopolitan environment in Hawaii in a mixed race society. So he is someone who could have been a post-racial politician. He is someone who could have helped cross America over from a racial past into a post-racial future. But sadly, he isn't. He's a throwback to darker times and racial ideologies. So, unfortunately, Barack is probably the most racial president we've had in I don't know how long. Certainly since before the World War II, maybe much farther back than that. And his racial ideology is, again, not through personal experience. He's never suffered discrimination. And he wasn't from the Deep South. He hasn't suffered discrimination the way older black people may have experienced it, especially in the South. Again, he's had a very privileged upbringing and lived a cosmopolitan life. And if anything, certainly his race has provided him great privilege. So he's never experienced discrimination or hardship or poverty. He's had a middle-class lifestyle. So his racial ideology comes from books. It's book-learned and then through left-wing indoctrination on college campuses and things like that, as he freely admits it in his book, Dreams from My Father. And his lifelong association with racial dividers and racial hate-mongers like for instance, Reverend Wright. This is not guilt by association. We need to understand that this is who Barack Obama chose to associate with. This is not simply his pastor, and Barack had only a passing relationship. This is Obama's mentor. This ideology affected Barack Obama deeply, as he talks about Dreams from My Father, and then he lied on a famous interview with Bill O'Reilly, where he said, "Oh, I had no idea that Reverend Wright was talking about this stuff and saying hateful things against white people in America." Of course he did. He talks about it in Dreams from My Father, and it's on the website of the church, which is clearly Black Liberation Theology, a racist religion, which is not Christianity, by the way. It only has Christianity in passing. It's about racial spirituality and racial ideology. So, and again, Barack Obama belonged to this church for 20 years and gave tens of thousands of dollars to Reverend Wright. So when you see this hate speech from Reverend Wright, you have to know it's done with the knowledge and funding of Barack Obama. He chose this church because of its racial ideology. Well, and you say, well, so what? So maybe he made some mistakes. Maybe now he's president, he's seen the light, he's a post-racial president, but he's not. As we can see by how he's governed, as should have been predicted by anyone who's familiar with Barack Obama. Again, his association, knowledge and funding of Reverend Wright's racial tirades and anti-American tirades. Farrakhan don't forget, Farrakhan is very closely tied to Reverend Wright. Chicago politics, right where Barack Obama's from. Reverend Wright is given Farrakhan awards. Barack Obama and Reverend Wright flew together to Farrakhan's Million Man March. And so I'm sure they were very intimately involved in that. And Barack Obama still associates with Farrakhan. A couple of years ago, while president, on a Memorial Day, or maybe it was 4th of July, I don't remember, he passed up an invitation to be with the troops or lay a wreath at the memorial and went and had a cookout with Farrakhan. So this is not something that's in his past. This is who Barack Obama is, and his Justice Department even now is giving awards to Al Sharpton, even in the post-Trayvon Martin case, where Al Sharpton goes down to Florida and fans the flames of racial division and racial animosity, and then gets an award from Eric Holder, who, again, as we'll talk about, is a terrible racial politician himself, just awful. And so, and again, the reason we need to talk about it is it affects his performance in office. You know, the racial categorization and socialism, it speaks to the idea that Barack Obama has always talked about racial redistribution. He doesn't talk about that as a politician for obvious reasons in front of cameras, but it's something he's been very outspoken about in his career, although you won't see the press talk about it, you won't see him talk about it. Sort of a racial socialism, group rights, and he put Sotomayor and Kagan on the Supreme Court, two politicians very committed to racial categorization, group rights, against the founding ideology of the United States and against one of the basic tenets of the Enlightenment, which is individual liberty, equal justice for all. These are things that Barack Obama and others on the political left do not agree with. They want group rights. Groups don't exist in objective reality, they're abstract concepts. So group rights really are meaning rights proportioned out by elites, by bureaucrats, by racial warlords and racial horse trading and backrooms of politics. It's against the founding ideology of the United States and against the Enlightenment. So, I mean, Barack Obama doesn't share the basic values of those who believe in these basic tenets of the Enlightenment and the founding ideology of the United States, as many on the political left do not. Quotas, affirmative action. Barack Obama his Justice Department has argued in front of the Supreme Court in favor of quotas and affirmative action. Racial democracy, where your representative is not who you elected from your district as an individual human being, voting for an individual representative to go to Congress, regardless of your race. You vote for this person or vote against them, they win in your district, that's your representative. And you get a chance every 2 or 6 years to vote that person out. But to the racial ideologues, your representative is not the person from your district. It's people of your race. That is your real representative. Even if the person from your district is not of your race, then it doesn't matter. You are seen as your representatives in Congress are the people of your race, regardless of where they come from. So it's racial democracy. And in fact, they argued for and got in election in New York where, because the candidate was elected of the wrong race, that they allowed people of certain ethnicities to have more votes than others. If you were white, you got 1 vote. If you were Hispanic, you got 6 votes. And it broke down by groups. So even democracy itself is proportioned by ideology, by bureaucrats and people horse trading and saying, okay, well, who's going to get how many votes? Even though a lot of Hispanics voted for the white candidate, they were overruled by regulators and bureaucrats saying, no, that's not who you should have voted for. You should have voted for the other person. Therefore, we're going to have an election where Hispanics get 6 votes and whites get 1 because really they chose the wrong person. So I don't even see how you call that democracy. It's clearly not a democracy. It's a dictatorship, and a racial dictatorship. If the winners are essentially being chosen by bureaucrats, the election is really a formality. And in racist law enforcement, Eric Holder, he has run a very racial justice department, an injustice department it should be called, because everything depends on your race. In fact, several people have quit the Justice Department and complained to Congress and to the press, to deaf ears in the case of the press, that Obama's Justice Department, or Injustice Department it should be called, is not enforcing the laws equally. Again, a basic tenet of American law and of the Enlightenment. They are enforcing laws according to racial ideology. If you are, for instance, the New Black Panthers, this was the case that started it all and gave us an early glimpse into Barack Obama's racist ideology. And again, when Holder does something, he's working for Barack Obama. So don't let the fact that this is Holder obscure you for the fact that Holder works for Obama. Although you don't see Obama, it's Holder. He's the face of it, but this is really Obama. Again, going back to Reverend Wright, Farrakhan, Sharpton, this is who Barack Obama really is, although you won't see, the fiery rhetoric from Barack Obama. That's not his style. He's got a much calmer civil style, but his ideology is the same, and the implications for our politics and our nation are really no different. So the New Black Panthers were standing out with clubs intimidating people trying to vote. If you were white, if you weren't black, standing at a polling place with clubs. So, of course, this was intimidation. That was the whole purpose. And the people at the Justice Department were ordered to drop the charges. Of course, because these were black people. And if you're black, you're allowed to racially intimidate. And if you're white, you are not. You'll go to jail, of course. And even in other cases where there are hate crimes brought against white people but not against black people. This is very important because to feel safe, you need to know that your life is being protected, that you and your family and your children are being protected by the law from violence. And if you're not, that speaks to what kind of a country we are. And so when there are death threats and bounty and wanted posters and a bounty put on Zimmerman. Now, we don't know what happened there, and it'll come out in court, I'm sure, and we'll all get to see the evidence, but regardless of what you think of that Trayvon Martin case, certainly there should be a trial, and there shouldn't be a bounty and wanted posters, but there are, and Eric Holder does nothing. In fact, he's busy trying to bring a hate crimes ruling against Zimmerman. Again, but we don't know what it's all going to come out, and so far the evidence seems to favor Zimmerman. But again, this is not about that trial. It's about the fact that you can put bounties and have wanted posters. Essentially, this is they are calling for the lynching of Zimmerman, and again, the Justice Department does nothing. So again, you see the racial component in this. It's very outspoken. It's very clear that some people's lives are more important than other people's lives, depending on their race. And this is against the Enlightenment. It's against the Golden Rule. It's hard to argue in favor of these things, but certainly the political left and those of Barack Obama's ideology, this is where they're coming from. And if you want to be protected by the law equally, you have a right to have that under American justice and any justice of Western civilization. But you're not. And very clearly this is Barack Obama's doing, and the quotas and a racial apportionment scheme through the Supreme Court, the Injustice Department. You look at who he brings into his administration and who he celebrates: Sharpton, Van Jones. And these are the people who Barack Obama surrounds himself with and has always surrounded himself with. And again, it's easy to not look at this because of Barack Obama. He presents himself as a very civil person, and by all accounts he is. His manner is very civil. But when you look at his ideology and how he is governing, you clearly see a racial and racist agenda. And this has terrible implications for the future of our country. Not just the injustices being done, but how people perceive each other and how we interact as individuals in our daily lives with people from other races. Because as racism, if Obama has his way and Sotomayor and Van Jones and Eric Holder have their way, the racial divisions in America will get deeper and more severe and more angry as they have. And as the United States comes under very serious economic trouble in the coming years, this can really blow up. And the fact that this racial ideology is spread in peaceful times should be a big warning about what can happen in this country under very hard economic times. So we need to talk about Obama's racial ideology and how he's governing America, and understand that this is not guilt by association. By talking about Reverend Wright, we need to understand who Barack Obama is and what direction he wants to bring our country and our Constitution, and the very notions of justice and what that means. And if we go down the path that Barack Obama is leading the country down, we're going to have a very bleak future as a country, if we even stay a country. So we need to talk about this and not be afraid or intimidated by the left-wing press, by anyone out there who would try to silence people. And I understand certain people are afraid. They figure, oh, let's talk about the economy. You know, Barack Obama's economy is terrible, the deficit. I understand that as a tactical measure, but regular people need to understand the direction we're going and why it was important to talk about Reverend Wright and why it matters. It affects how our country is being governed. And we all need to reject this and to reject Barack Obama and vote him out of office so we can't stack the Supreme Court with more racial dividers and have a Justice Department that gives out so-called racial justice. I call it racist justice, which is what it is. So don't be fooled by Holder. He's not doing anything that Barack Obama isn't approving of 100%. Thank you.